All right. Welcome to the very first episode of the Gold Digger Comic Universe Review Podcast. I'm
I think we need
Brian,
to find a shorter name.
or I need to say it faster. Well, welcome to all those who clicked on to listen to this. This is our first episode. Thank you for joining us. I'm Brian,
I'm Nikki.
and thank you for listening. Yep, that's it. Goodbye. No, very short one. No. It's like,
No, you can't, because you're supposed to tell me all about this Gold Digger Remastered. Part 1. Does it have a name?
Well, okay. Okay, so I'll tell Nikki everything, and I'll tell you guys so you can listen in too. So, so all you who are fans of the Gold Digger comic book probably know about it, but for those of you who have never heard of Gold Digger comic book, I'll inform you about it. Gold Digger is a comic book that was created by Fred Perry back in the 90s. And Fred Perry served in the military. Unfortunately, I can't remember which branch, but he served in the first Desert Storm. And while he was over there, he had a talent for drawing, and he basically was able to draw very, let's say, sensual women that he was able to trade to other soldiers for commissary items. So he basically would draw them pictures of pretty women, we'll just say that, to get things like, extra toilet paper, candies, toothbrush, toothpaste. So he had himself a little thriving business while he was over there in Desert Storm.
Yeah, they would say so.
Yeah. So, and when he came home, and thank you, Fred, for your service. So
yes.
Yep. Sorry, Nikki, I don't mean to cut you off, but yep, pipe in whenever you want. But when he came home, let's see. Well, I guess I should look at my notes. It says he was in the Marine Corps. But definitely don't want to piss off a former Marine. Sorry. Once a Marine, always a Marine.
Military person.
But when he came home, he started working on the idea of kind of like a female Indiana Jones. And that's where the idea of Gina Diggers came from. And so the comic we're going to cover today is the original Gold Digger comic book of Gina Diggers and her adopted sister, Britanny Diggers. And so he did that, and that was in a 4-part, the Antarctic Press Mangazine in 1991. And from there, he did a little mini-series. After that, a 4-part mini-series. Then went into a 50-part black and white series. And then did another colored series that ran for 300 issues after that.
So, very prolific comic series sets.
Yep, he's basically been doing it for the last 30 years. And when he basically decided once he got up to issue 300, he's going to be ending the Gold Digger comic run. And that's what prompted me to do this podcast. It's like, well, not a lot of people I've ever talked to has heard about the Gold Digger comic book, to me, which is one of the best comics out there, because Fred is such a great storyteller, because he's created this wonderful universe that's Gold Digger World, or the Gold Digger universe. Because, he started with the simple premise of, the Digger sisters, archaeologists, adventurers, and then he has blown it out into time travel, multi-universes, magic, fantasy, sci-fi, aliens, robots, pop culture. Anything you can think of, he's found a way to work in there. Anything you think of, he's covered. And you might think like, well, that's a mix mash. That's can't work, but he's found a way to do it.
I love when any artist of any kind mixes genres and finds ways of making them balanced. So I'm excited to see where this all goes.
Yep. And our plan, if it hopefully works out well, is that we're going to take a single issue each episode. We'll go through it and talk through it, and since this is an audio media, you guys can't actually see the comic book, so we'll try to describe each page and panel the best we can, discuss it, point out things like, hey, I found this very interesting here. What did you think about it, Nikki?
Yes.
and discuss those things, and then go on. And then the next episode we'll do the same thing with the next issue.
It sounds like it's going to be a blast. Just from the little bit I've read thus far, I really like the story. I like the characters, and the artwork is just beautiful. So it'll be fun.
Yep, and going back for me, since I'm the longtime fan, going back and looking at the beginning, it's like there were things like, oh, I didn't remember that from the beginning. It's like, oh yeah, Fred was his art style, seeing it when it began to where it is, 30 years later, seeing as he was developing characters. So that's going to be a nice journey for me too.
And then I think we should get started on this first issue.
Okay, let's see this. Let me look at my notes real fast.
We should probably read this front cover here that tells you all about this collection, because it's the Fred Perry Gold Digger Remastered. Because it's created, written, and illustrated by Fred Perry, colored by Robbie Bevard. I hope I'm not butchering that last name. Sorry, Robbie, if I am. Remember, the coloring people are just as important, if not more so, as the illustration and the writing, because that's what makes that story pop out at you. So I always like to make sure that they get their due.
Yep. Well, and I needed to point out, originally these were all done in black and white.
Right.
Though for us, I was only able, because Nikki and me live in separate states. No,
Montana?
Utah. We are best friends. I mean, I used to live in the same house as her when we were roommates.
Yeah, a long time ago.
But unfortunately, the only digital versions I could find to be able to share with her was from some of the Gold Digger bricks. So
For those not in the nomenclature, a brick is a combination, like a set of issues, if I'm understanding that correct, Brian?
Yeah, it's like a graphic novel, but it's like 25 issues, like 600 pages, because they're trying to go through and give us all the old issues up so you can have them in the physical form and also in a digital form.
Yeah, so it's called a brick because it's big and heavy, and you can bash someone's head in with it.
And also going with the term of gold digger for gold brick.
Gold brick. Again, you big and heavy, and you could bash someone's head in with it.
Yes.
Sorry, I'm violent. I apologize now.
And that's why we love you for it. So we start off, and everyone also got to remember, these were written back in the early 90s. So some of the technology that he shows is from back then. We will point that out. So, all right, starting off, we're in a forest at a campsite. A young lady is standing out in front of a tent, and she's basically, talking to another person who's inside the tent, and
they're bickering.
Yep. She's basically calling to her sister, Cheetah, which is her name or nickname, because I think at this time Fred is still working out. Again, he's still working out the characters, saying like, saying, "Hey, wakey," and saying like, "Boy, look, like, oh, you have to forgive me. I do have a speech impediment problem, so there will be words I will have problems saying. It's like, boy, you like
lycanthropes.
Lycanthropes. Thank you, Nikki. Are lazy bunches,
sleepyheads."
And Cheetah
and I'd like to point out, this is the main character, Gina, and as Brian said, Fred was going for an Indiana Jones look, and so she's got the fedora and she's got the boots, and there's a gun and her backpack, so it's pretty cool. Obviously the big difference is she's female, and in keeping with the more sex sells concept, she's got short shorts on. So I mean, it's obviously not physically the best outfit for going off in archaeology, but for the comic world and for catching the reader's eye, it is a lot of fun. So suspend your belief and all of that stuff. So I like that look on her. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, she kind of has the Daisy Duke shorts and t-shirt on, or cutoff shorts.
Except they're not jeans. They are most definitely khakis.
Yes.
Envision Daisy Duke khakis, and you got yourself right
Like,
there.
she's missing the cargo pants of the shorts, but
She makes it work.
oh yeah, she definitely works it. And let's see, she's trying to get her sister Cheetah, who, as he said, is a
lycanthrope.
Lycanthrope, out of bed. And Cheetah,
in case you were wondering, the cheetah is like the lycanthrope part, so she's spotted.
and she's basically telling her like she needs like 30 more minutes, and she zips the tent up. And Gina's basically saying like well, you're lazy. Why do you have the generator running? It's in the middle of the morning day. It's plenty of light. You don't need that running. And when they show the inside of the tent, Cheetah has an old, well, for us, it would be old, portable television, and is watching cartoons.
Yeah, it actually says Yabba Dabba Doo. We all know what that's from. Mm-hmm.
Anyone who knows the old Flintstones cartoons does. So, yeah, and this is definitely way before smartphones. Otherwise, she'd be probably watching it on that. And so then they at the bottom of the page, it says, it starts off 7 a.m., and then it cuts to noon. So several hours later, the two girls are finally out adventuring, and Cheetah asks Gina, okay, why are they out in this forest? What are they looking for? And Gina tells them they are looking for Merlin's time machine.
Which is fun, because Merlin, of course, you think of the wizard, but it's a time machine, which you think technology. So the concept of merging magic and technology back in the 90s is always a lot of fun.
And you also get to see a little bit of Gina's personality, where she says, think of all the guys we could pick up in that thing. Every hunk in history, ours for the taking.
Yeah, she's a little bit of a but what's a good term for it?
Boy crazy?
Yeah, she's boy crazy.
So on the next page, we get a good view of both Gina and Cheetah. And would you like to describe a better description of what the two of them look like, Nikki?
Yeah, sure. So Cheetah is in her half human form. So she's got a white face covered in fur and spots along her arms and legs, and she's got the tail, and she's got cute little cheetah ears, and she's at least a foot taller than Gina, who is again in that Daisy Duke cut off shorts, blue shirt, with the fedora. And Gina's blonde, so that gives you an idea. And right now they're arguing, and they bicker like the siblings that they clearly grew up as. In this instance, Cheetah's staring down at Gina with her hands on her hips, and they're calling her a little nerd, which of course is a bit of a trigger for Gina, who immediately responds with, I'm not a nerd. And that's what I love about this is, yes, there's a lot of that. The drawing is very detailed in the figure, and clearly she's scantily clad and she's very attractive, but then she goes on about physics, chemistry, Paris science, and archaeology are her hobbies. And so it's lovely to see the concept that you can be this pretty, sexy girl who wants to wear things that show off who she is physically, but she's also incredibly intelligent. And I think sometimes in society, we're so busy saying, oh, you can't be pretty and smart or at the same time. Like it's possible. It happens all the time. And I love seeing that displayed in this comic.
Yeah, I love how when she lists off all her science, she calls them, these are normal, everyday hobbies.
Just like everyone else's, which of course I don't have these hobbies. Not my thing.
It's like, yeah, well, everybody should be into chemistry. Everyone should be into physics. But then she, goes along, and then she just talks about like, oh yeah, like they were on vacation in England, and when they were visiting Stonehenge, she just, noticed one of her science devices she had, just noticed some weird readings. She just happened to bring something along with her, and which led her to find some old time readings there, which led them to this place. So it's like, see, even on her off day, she can't help but do science things.
Mm-hmm. Well, I love that she just has these devices with her all the time, and they're clearly things that she made, because I took my electromagnetic spectrum probe, and she got a glimpse into the fourth dimension. So right there, you get into your sci-fi side of this, right up in the in the second panel, in the second page of the story, which is really cool.
Mm-hmm. And then of course you have Cheetah just like yawning, and it's like, okay, that's fine. Let's just find the thing, get into trouble, get out of trouble, and go home so I can play Mario Brothers 3.
Yeah, their personalities are very different. As we go along, I do like Cheetah a lot. She's clearly, she's smart, don't get me wrong, but that's clearly not where her skills or her desires lie. She'd much rather be doing fun things than getting her sister out of trouble.
But yeah, you can definitely tell that they're sisters, even though they squabble, they do care about each other. And then on the next page, Cheetah is asking, okay, so where is this time machine at?
Of course, it's in a cave.
Which, Gina shows like, oh yeah, I found it. It's over there. And Cheetah, being the were cheetah, or, the were creature that she is, they're nowhere close to the cave. And she's like, oh, I can smell how gross it is from here. We're not going in there. And by the time she turns around, Gina's already climbing into the mouth of it. And she goes off like, it's like, I hope, there's nothing here to bother us. It's like, oh, come on. And Gina says, oh, come on. That's what you're here. You're here to protect us from anything. And what do you expect? Bats, ghosts, goblins?
And then, of course, goblins jump out, which I love.
It's like, oh, and Cheetah says, like, how about them, little Miss Thrill Seeker? And Gina at the very end just has wide-eyed looking up at a bunch of, at first we don't know exactly what they are, because they look like either trolls, goblins, or ogres, maybe.
Brown, greenish skin, big pointy ears, very tall, very muscular, loincloths and bits of armor.
One of them's wielding a gigantic axe.
Yeah, very Dungeons and Dragons sort of look to them.
Because Cheetah is definitely looking a little peeved, like, oh good, some more trouble my sister's got me into. And then Gina's like, oh crap, I found more trouble.
Yep.
And I don't know if, since I never read the original comic in its broke up form, I don't know how Fred had them originally. So at the top of this page, you have a little word blurb from Fred where it says, I love it. It seems as though the infamous archaeologist Gina Digger and her bestest pal Cheetah have run across a small obstacle on their way to the greatest find in history, an ancient time machine.
And these are on a couple of different pages. And of course they look like they're on torn pieces of parchment, so slightly rolled up, to give it that still archaeology look. Fits with the whole theme of the story. And of course, this is where we get to see Cheetah really shine.
Of course, and also I want to say, I think this is also when Fred's still, again, first comic, developing the characters. One thing that we also try to do is, again, I'm the lifelong fan. I've read most of the issues, because the last few up to 300 haven't been published yet. Nikki hasn't read a lot of them. I just barely
read this issue today.
Yeah. So she doesn't know
literally a lot of today.
So she doesn't know a lot of what's coming in the future, and that's how we're going to play it. I'm going to try to do my best to not say, well, in this upcoming issue, we're going to know about this. So we're going to play it that is, this issue is the only one that's ever been published that we know of so far. So when we go to the next episode and read the next issue, that'll be the next one. So we will only have the knowledge up until what we have read so far.
So if you all want to cheat and go find them and read them all, we don't blame you in the least.
Yep. And after we get done with these first 5 issues, there's a website that we will give you that will have the first 100 or 200 issues available for free. So you can hopefully be able to read along with us. But unfortunately, these first 5 that we will cover were not available. So you'll have to just go listen along with us and try to find them on your own, or wait until we get to episode 6. I think in standard style here, going back to the comic, Gina first tries to see, like, talks to Cheetah. Hey, Cheetah, do you think we can, outrun these guys? And Cheetah is going first, like, well, I don't think, I could outrun them, but I can't outrun them carrying you. Of course, I love how it's like, you're a cheesecake loaded carcass.
Yes, they have such intriguing insults for each other as they bicker, as siblings often do. It's very entertaining. Cheesecake loaded carcass.
So it's like right there, she's saying, like, well, I'm fast enough to get away, but if I'm carrying you, there's no way we both could get away. So it's like, we must fight. And I love in, like, the parentheses, and I'm going to remember you when I'm nursing all those permanent scars I'm going to get too.
Yeah, basically Cheetah's saying we're just gonna have to fight, and by we, she means her.
This is one thing I think I want to say, the point to remember, because at the very end you'll see that Fred, I think, has changed his mind on a few things, at least within this issue, as he develops the characters more. So yeah, then they go into attack thing, because Cheetah is very much a street brawler.
Yeah, she's right now. Well, I mean, she's definitely a brawler, but it's looking like she just did a flying kick. There's some potential martial arts in there of some sort.
Yeah.
She's definitely the fighter of the two of them.
Yeah, because I think when it shows her lunging at one guy, and I believe from the word text that Fred uses, snap, I think she snapped his neck as she used him to propel herself over him to do a boot to the head of the other, I'm going to say,
creature.
Troll. Yeah, I'm just going to call them all trolls until we know better. Then, of course, Gina's reaching for her oversized pistol from her backpack.
And then looking for ammo.
And I love this because, Fred being military background, she's trying to find something, and he gives her the acronym. Okay, let's see if
ATF-SDS.
And luckily at the very bottom, he gives what it is, because he'll do that. Fred will, come up with something, and then he'll give you what it means, like armor piercing, fin stabilizing,
discarding sabot.
And she loads those rounds into her gun, and with the she can't find those ones, but instead she uses the laser-guided Hellfire micro missile.
Yeah, because, she's definitely the bring more firepower person.
And she's able to take out a small group of them with that mini missile.
Before getting attacked.
Jumped by her own trolls, or by a troll, and yelling for help herself.
In the meantime, Gina's being held by her throat by one of the others, and she's like, why does this always happen?
It's like she has her own problems, and Gina's getting in trouble. Of course, Cheetah finds a quick way to get out of her problems.
Oh, the quickest way any person can get out of the hands of anybody with testicles.
Yep.
And I love that giant crunch with the red exclamation point that Fred put in there as she kicks this guy.
She cup checks the troll, kicking him in the groin. It's like, yep, you kick any male in the balls, he's going down. And then she goes to try to help save her sister, Gina, who's on her back. And the troll...
stabbed.
Yep, he's trying to find a very unique place to put his dagger into between Gina's chest, or her breasts.
Going for the heart shot there.
Yeah.
She's trying to kick him off.
But she's not doing it very well. And at the very bottom in the last few panels, Cheetah shows up and saves her sister, but of course does chastise her, saying, you could learn to defend yourself. But she's like, why? You're the bodyguard.
I have a feeling this is going to be a continuous, ongoing argument between the two of them.
And as they're kind of bickering, and this is also when we see that Cheetah at least identifies the smaller of the things, even though they are quite large, as goblins, and the biggest one is a troll. Like I say, for goblins, those were kind of big, because I always thought goblins were smaller things. But
well, I think it depends on your which world you're pulling goblins from.
Yeah.
And well, this is the Gold Digger world, so apparently these goblins are much larger.
Or they're very well-fed goblins. As they're bickering, we hear kind of like off-screen that somebody is watching them. And in the very last panel of this page, we see what looks like possibly a dragon, and maybe two elves are watching Gina from inside or watching her image from inside a crystal ball, and the dragon saying this, this might be the person I need to be able to fix the time raft.
So they can have victory over the world.
And of course, it gives the evil laughter. Yep. And then we go on to the next page. Another wonderful thought scroll or text scroll from Fred. Yep. Gina hasn't found the time machine yet, but at least she thinks thinks it's close.
And they're trying to squeeze themselves through a tiny little opening in the cave wall, and Cheetah gets stuck because, as I mentioned before, she is very large in her anthropomorphic form.
Because I think later when some information. I think when Fred gives the size, I think she is over 7 feet tall. But yep, she's gotten stuck, and they're running away from some creature that's following them from the other side.
Creature. Slimy tentacle creature, which is just awesome.
Yep, and they can't get. And Gina's trying to pull Cheetah through, but yep, she's gotten stuck.
And I love that she's, oh, gross, the big slimy tentacles are all over my new Reeboks. Because that's the problem we have here, the shoes, not the impending death.
Yes, because we also do find out, I can't remember if it was earlier, that Cheetah does love to shop. She'd rather spend her time in a mall than out venturing. Of course, and this is also another sisterly jab where Gina tells her, shut up and think thin thoughts, Tubby. Cheetah has to yell like, Tubby, why you?
And then she gets slime. She's, oh, it's wrapping around my legs. I'm getting slime. Which the artwork shows very much. It's the tentacles, which are kind of a browny orange color, are wrapping around her, and they're all slimy and goopy and gross. This is not that kind of comic for those who are thinking it.
Yep, it's not that kind of comic.
Moving on.
But I do love all the Band-Aids.
Right, from the last, for reference, she's covered in Band-Aids from the last fight. Just, there's 2 on her cheeks and 3 on one arm, and they're just all over the place.
I know, I mean, I just love it that she put Band-Aids on, but instead of like actual bandage wraps, it's like, oh, you have a little boo-boo here. Here's a Band-Aid.
Just a flesh wound.
And then the look of Cheetah's face on the first panel of the next page, where she goes like, gross, you can't possibly imagine how gross it feels. Those tentacles wrapping around her. And Gina comes up with an idea. It's like, well, if she can't pull her through, she might have to, try to shoot the thing.
She's squeezing her arm back into the hole, pushing past Cheetah in a very compromised, it looks very uncomfortable.
Yep, she basically is putting her gun hand, again, this is not one of those type of mangas or podcasts, but she's putting her hand between Cheetah's butt cheeks.
She wears much nicer shorts.
Yeah, hers more like jogging shorts.
And she's like, it's extremely uncomfortable. So that she can shoot this creature with some form of fiery death.
Or whatever ammo she has left. Of course, I love it. It's like, ouch, I told you not to tense up, Cheetah. My hand is going numb. Of course, I love the one little panel where the creature has its mouth open and it's got the question mark looking at the gun.
Wait, what?
just before, Gina shoots, becomes a fiery mess.
In flames. This is interesting. In the next panel, and we got this later, and they're talking about how the armor on the thing was too strong. She couldn't blast it. And we actually get to see what Gina looks like outside of her anthro form. So mostly humanoid at this point.
You mean Cheetah?
Cheetah. Sorry, I apologize. Cheetah. Too bad you had to shift back to your human form to squeeze free of the hole, Miss Invincible Best There Is at What I Do. And at this point now, she's the same height as Gina. She's a darker blonde, and her ears are only slightly pointed. So still has a resemblance of being other, like clearly not fully human. The close-up on her face here shows slitted cat green eyes, but it's fun to see that she's got a full human form.
Yeah, Fred still goes with the theme that the lycanthropes at least still have a human form, their hybrid form, which Cheetah likes to stay in, and though he hasn't shown it, but then gives them their their third form, their animal form.
Yeah, in the next little panel, she says, "Why don't you shift into your cheetah form?" And Cheetah responds with, so I can hear you talk with my ears, but I can't talk to you, basically.
And she says it takes her 24 hours before she can shift forms. So that's why she's like stuck in her puny human form. And of course, for them, this is when two elves show up to take them prisoner. And of course, Cheetah, being in her human form, is as weak as a kitten, can't defend them, and Gina is out of ammo.
And we're looking at the elves here, larger pointed ears. Both are dressed in more of a medieval looking armor. The female is in your traditional female armor from most cartoons that must have magic if it's going to protect that belly that's all exposed, considering it's basically just a bikini and a cape. She has a cool sword.
The bikini chain armor, yeah.
But what I like here is, some comics I've seen in the past where all the girls are busty and pretty and have some beautiful form to them. The guys tend to look a little less. But Fred gives the guys just as much attention. They're muscular, they're handsome, they're more fully clothed, but it's still obvious with the two here.
Yeah, Fred does just as much attention to the beefcake as he does to the cheesecake. On the next page, it shows that Gina and Cheetah have both been captured, and their prison cell is not what you would think.
Cage. It's a gilded cage. There's fruit in a bowl, and Gina's soaking in a fountain and enjoying herself quite thoroughly. Of course, she's waiting. She's making Cheetah wait, who's covered in slime. So Cheetah's sitting there all unhappy, but she's just glaring at her sister while Gina's like leaning back, all happy. She's like, thanks for waiting to take your shower so I could get clean without all the slime. Just 30 minutes to go. That's very sisterly. That's very much waiting to get into the bathroom. Why are you taking so long?
Yep, and then once Gina is done, we find out that Cheetah lost her backpack, so she doesn't have anything to change into because all her, as I said, all the current clothes she has on are slimed. So she wants to borrow some of Gina's, but the only thing that Gina has in her backpack, and I love this, spare underwear, a few cans of SpaghettiO, and her stupid canteen. So just the essentials.
Enough to spend the night.
So it's like everything else is left at the base camp. And I love how she points out that even in her human form, Gina's underwear is even too small or too big for her to wear.
She's holding up what is clearly a bra that is much larger than her human bust. And I can't wear this stuff. Why do you have such big body parts? This is a B dash. You know what she was going to say, and she went with body parts. We're keeping it clean, people. Keeping it clean.
And now... And again, for Fred, as he's trying to develop the story, he's giving us some character background in the next couple pages. Here we get to find out about Cheetah's backstory, about how she became Gina's adopted sister. Of course, this brings me up with the question, Nikki, if you had a sibling that was a werefolk, we'll just leave it blank, any kind of were creature, would you have waited? I think Freddie here says like 18 years or some time period, 18 years to find out how they became your sibling? Or do you think you would have either have asked them or asked your dad?
I probably would have asked, but I got the impression here, because she says, you never did tell me how you were Were-Cheetah wound up being her adopted sister. So that suggests that she asked once before, and maybe it was such a sore topic, which it is once you learn the backstory, that she finally just decided to drop it and figured she would eventually tell her when she was ready. And I get the impression that their father was probably the same. It's not his story to tell. When Cheetah's ready, we'll talk about it. So that's what I took from this, is like, I'm sure they've asked before. But while Gina is clearly, she's highly intelligent, and she's clearly gung-ho about getting to things and snooping to get what she wants, she's also compassionate for her sister. So I don't think pushing her on what is clearly a dark and hurtful topic would have been in her wheelhouse.
Yeah, because I mean, as much as they tease each other, you definitely know that they care about each other.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because
So
I'm.
this is where it tells you
Oh,
18 years ago. You were right. It's about 18 years ago. So we're looking at this panel, which to suggest that it's background, Fred has given it a sepia overtone. So everything's kind of a nice orangey brown color.
kind of, yeah, kind of a gray tone,
Faded.
faded.
Yeah.
And Brittany is Cheetah's real name. I let that slip, but I think right now he was still deciding on what to call her, because for a while she goes by her nickname Cheetah. Cheetah is giving her backstory where she says, that Gina's father, was called to go investigate somewhere. I'm trying to see if it gives a location. I know it's in Scotland. Something about some, lichen. Ugh. I don't know why I can't say lycanthropes. I don't know why I can't say that word today. Lycanthropes tribes deep in the forest that had been on a rampage. And as he was investigating that area, he was attacked by a were-cheetah there. And a battle ensued, and where a normal person would have been either scared off or gravely injured in the battle, Dr. Diggers, I always forget to put the S on the end, was able to hold his own, even though he was, mortally wounded, because he was skilled in the ways of the arcana. So
Magic.
Right now, Fred is kind of hinting that he is a spellcaster, or he knows he knows magic. But before the were-cheetah could, finish Dr. Digger off, something drew him away from their battle, which gave Dr. Digger time to heal his wounds with his magic. And when he followed him, he came to a scene of a horrible battle where there were other were-cheetahs that had been slaughtered. And he found what looked like a home where, the were-cheetah he had been fighting had been killed, along with a female were-cheetah. And then he went into the home to see what they had been protecting, and inside there he found a child. And that child was Cheetah. And he doesn't really give an age, but from the comic, she looks to be maybe a year old, if that, or younger.
Maybe 2.
Being a caring person, he couldn't leave that child there, so he took her home and brought her into his family and adopted her as one of his own, or raised her as one of his own, making her as though she was one of his children, raising her alongside with Gina.
And I love how Cheetah describes it, along with his own obnoxious, nerdy little girl. And then she says, "We've been like sisters ever since." I just the little personality digs you could tell that they give each other throughout. Even when she's revealing this dark, sad moment in her past, she still takes a little bit of time to tease her sister a bit.
In the last panel, as Gina's getting dressed, she says, I'm sorry about your parents, Cheetah. I never knew.
Cheetah says, "Because I never told you, dummy."
Again, the sister's there saying like, well, I never told you, but I'm okay. I'm grateful. Of course, and this is also when we show that they were interrupted by the female elf saying like, okay, nice story, prepare yourselves or stop your grooming. My master wishes for your presence immediately. And on the next page, we get to see who their master is, the dragon Dreadwing, who, from the looks of it, he's sitting in a fiery pit. And from the text bubbles around his words, I think he's trying to make himself sound friendly or flowery words.
Yes, because there's little flowers and leaves all around the words he speaks. It's funny because the elves bring the 2 sisters up, and you have this purple flame that says "good," and then it says "ahem," and then he talks to them, and it's these flowery words, and you get the impression that he's clearly trying to charm them.
Of course, it's like, but how good can you make a dragon seem when it's, like I said, sitting in a fiery pit and everything around is smoke?
Dragon. Sorry, I love dragons. I'm a big dragon fan. Evil, good, doesn't matter. I love dragons.
Of course, and I love where, Cheetah's going like, I swear, Gina, if we ever get out of this, I'm beating the daylights out of you before I let you enter another cave.
And you can see the dragon. "I bid thee welcome, friend." And of course I'm not evil, says the evil dragon. I just,
And I love, Gina's going, he doesn't sound evil. And then Gina, shut up, Gina. Showing that Gina, even though she's smart, Gina sometimes can be naive.
A little gullible.
Gullible.
There's a very big difference between between intelligence and book smarts versus street smarts and reading people. Or in this case, dragon.
And we see that Dreadwing does talk to them about the thing that they were looking for, the time raft.
Is what they call it.
Instead of a time machine. It explains how, they were, cast here from the past by some evildoer. And this is his, prison with him and with his 2 elf slaves. And he only wants to return to his time, but the time raft is not working. And he, if Gina could get it to work so he could go return to his time, he'd be so grateful to her that he would give her, such riches, gold from his treasure hold.
And it's interesting to note. So you have this panel where here at the top where we've got that yellow flowery words as he starts explaining it. But then as he gets angry, the bubbles on the words become that purple flamey evil look, and he gets mad, and we have this image of Gina where he's blasting them with heat and fire, and she's like, and then he goes, oh, I'm sorry for my outburst and my ill-mannered outburst. And again, we're back to the flowers. So it's easy to discern just by the way he draws the obviously the artwork, but also the word bubbles, the different personality and what's trying to be conveyed here that you might miss in a comic versus, say, a cartoon or a movie. I think that's really cool. Just the way he makes you realize what's going on in the art.
Yeah, because with this own, being a written medium, you have to find ways to convey that to the reader. Where if this was being done in audio or a visual, you could easily
hear the inflection.
And of course, in the last panel, you have the male and the female elves, and they're quickly doing like some sort of secret glance to each other as Dreadwing is trying to get convince Gina to fix the time raft. Definitely something going on between those two. So we go back to there's a run to the next page, and Gina, they're back in their lavish gilded prison cell. Gina's lounging on the bed. And you can, she's thinking over what Dreadwing has offered her, that big old pile of gold to fix the raft. And she still doesn't know whether or not she wants to do it. But then you have Cheetah looking at her watch doing her countdown.
Yahoo, my 24 hours are up. I'm back in my favorite form. And she just is boom sort of look, and she does that's not what they called it back in the 90s, but it's definitely a dab sort of look there where she just I'm back. And it looks like she's singing too. He's got this word bubble here with little notes, so it's clearly she's supposed to be singing Major League Butt Kicking's back in town.
Was able to shift back into her larger hybrid form.
And you got these rip sounds as the clothing she borrowed tears as she gets bigger, and because she's flexing her muscles, and she's like, shoot the moon, and she's posing. It's very, very entertaining. My stuff doesn't stretch.
Gina in the background like, oh God, not again. It's like, okay, this is probably not the only time she's seen her sister do this. And of course, she goes off on her, and it's like, hey, my stuff doesn't stretch like yours, remember? And then, in the last panel, as the 2 girls are bickering, we see the male elf standing there in only what I can describe as a banana hammock Speedo.
It's a thong, clearly.
Yes. And as you pointed out, Nikki, earlier, Fred is really good at drawing the female form, and also really well at drawing the male muscular form.
Yeah. And he does a very good justice, very muscular, well endowed under his little Speedo thong thing. And of course, he's hinting at why he's there. He's been sent there by his consort for their entertainment. And I love this. This is another big difference between Cheetah and Gina, because Cheetah is just like, great, what's this about? And staring at her sister, who is now, of course, going gaga goo goo over, handsome fella here. She's very excited. She's don't mind if I do. And she's like, honestly, Gina, it isn't even spring yet. And it's funny to see how Gina is clearly all over this, and Cheetah's just like, now isn't the time.
And then to the next page, We have Cheetah somehow has gotten herself locked out of their bedroom. Yeah, the room. And she's beating on the door, and Gina is locking it, because Cheetah's yelling, like, let me in. Like, I turn my back to go take a leak, and look what happens.
And of course, we've got another bubble with little musical notes in it. I can't hear you. Come back in an hour.
Gina
is... get the champagne. That's what I want to know. He's pulling out champagne from a bowl of ice.
Yeah, I was trying to look at that. Does it say champagne? Does it say Coke on it?
No, it's shaped like a champagne bottle, and then she's got these cute little glasses with yellow liquid in them. It's clearly meant to be some form of booze.
Yeah, probably champagne for them. Because I think Fred has done this gag before in another issue, and I think that he does it as Coke. Sorry, that's for another issue. Yeah, where she goes in and it's like, don't mind my sister, and then she goes up, to the elf, and she's, goes like, oh, I'm sure we can find something to entertain me. The male elf kind of goes off like, oh, you misunderstand my meaning, to Gina.
Well, if you understand my meaning, my consort was very concerned that you should have an enjoyable experience with me, but he doesn't look all that thrilled about it. Honestly, he just looks more concerned and uncertain.
And, Gina first is like, going off, oh, that's nice of her. And, just still, I think she's still in the mind, like she's, I'm going to get some, not quite hearing what he's saying. And then he, goes off like, oh, then you accept me. I am yours. And then keeps going on. And like, as far as I know now, oh, and then Gina says, as far as I know now, relax, don't worry. I'll be gentle. And like, wait a minute.
And then she connects the dots. So what you don't see here is at this point, she's laid the guy down on the bed and she's kind of straddling his legs and has her hand on his chest. It's clear where she intends for things to go up until she realizes what he said. And then she sits back and has this look of confusion on her face. And what's all this I'm yours jazz? This is just for fun, right?
And then the male elf goes like, well, for you, yes, but for me, it's much more. Then he goes into with elves, once they have mated, they create a mating life bond between them and their part. That bond basically links them together forever. So they become like soulmates. But if they ever...
And right now he's bonded to his consort. And he can break that bond by making a new bond with another. But once it's broken, it can never be repaired. It's kind of sweet.
And then Gina goes like, so, why on earth would you or her be willing to do that, if it can't be repaired? And then the male elf goes in and explains that they are not actually, the servants of Dreadwing, but his, slaves or his prisoner, and that he was, an evil dragon back in their day, and that the person who originally operated the time machine or the time raft came from the future and used it to defeat the Dreadwing dragon while he was trying to conquer the ancient times. And was able to defeat him by casting him into the future, but in the process was, basically was killed in the process, but was able to descend him in the future. But those two elves were caught up in it and brought along with him and have been stuck serving him since then. So it's kind of a tragedy story at the same time. So it's like they're trying to, talk Gina into not fixing it or not giving it to the time raft to Dreadwing because of how evil he actually is. And if he gets it, he'll go back and conquer the past.
So he's offering himself up as a bribe, basically. Don't fix the time machine and you can have me, which is kind of sad. And of course, it's not a proper comic if we don't have the good versus evil, devil versus angel on the shoulder here. So we have a Gina in fire that comes and poofs on her one shoulder and says, if you want to take that lizard, that's fine by me, but the least you should do is bang the elf brains out, which is awesome. But then the little angel comes up and she looks kind of angry. How dare you even think about ruining the only thing those two elves ever have? It's each other. How could you live with yourself? And of course, Gina is ultimately a good person. So I like this. I may be a little rambunctious, but I'm not a homewrecker.
Of course, she does say like, hey, well, before we go, like, how about some, like little heavy petting?
And in the background, you've got Cheetah pounding on the door. He's actually got pound, pound, pound at the door. Gina, I'm still out here. Gina!
Of course, this made me have a thought, Nikki. If you were in this type of situation and you had somebody like this come up to you and like offer themselves to you, Would you take them up on that offer? I mean, somebody you just met.
Well, I'm no stranger to the one night stand, let me tell you. No strings attached? Hell yeah. I would have some fun with that.
Yeah, if there was no life bond.
Strings. There's a lot of strings here.
Yeah.
Way too many strings.
Yeah.
The whole freaking ball of twine going on here. So I would have been more preference for the female elf though. Or both of them. Both of them would have been fun.
Go for the menage a trois. Is that the right word? I can't remember.
Yes, that is the right word. You got it right. Go for it.
So on the next page, we jump into, Gina and Cheetah are fixing the time raft.
And Cheetah's trying to get her to tell her whether or not they did anything. And Gina's like, I don't want to talk about it. Because of course she didn't get any. It's highly frustrating.
And you can definitely tell they're sisters because Cheetah keeps poking at her. It's like, how was he?
Struck out again.
It's like, just shut up and pass me that thingamabob.
Which cracks me up. She's like got all of these degrees and she knows all these hobbies and she calls it a thingamabob.
And of course, I don't know if you noticed. I mean, of course, Gina's head first in the engine of this thing, so you get a nice, butt shot of her.
Very nice booty shot. And of course, she's in the Daisy Duke, so it's quite a lot of buttocks that's showing and a little bit of that other area. So again, that's that whole concept. Sex sells, whether or not there's actual sex. This is very, very well done.
But something I've never noticed before, and I know I think she talks about it in a word bubble a little bit later, but the letters that are just above her, butt, the H-O, and I think that's an part of an N.
Right. No, and she does. She mentions it later. What took you so long to repair it? It's a Honda.
Because she also like what type of time machine comes with its own owner's manual and toolboxes? So like I pretty much had everything I needed to repair it, even if I don't know how it works. And I also love this is like the first where we see the banter where Gina starts calling Cheetah Igor. Yes, I am the mad scientist, and you're my Igor assistant.
That's why I'm the genius, and you're Igor. What did you call me? We've got the glaring from Cheetah here. She grabs her sister's jacket, and Gina's just grinning deviously, like, "Oh, nothing." And then she's like, "All right, she's fixed the whole thing." And Cheetah asks how they control it, and rather than connecting to it mentally, which is what they were originally supposed to do, she made a remote control.
Yeah, because Gina says, I don't like machines looking inside my head, mental messing in the mind.
Yeah, which I don't blame.
Because I like how, and then she goes, okay, we're going to check out the weapon systems. The particle beam, plasma bolt, and the Gina Blaster. It's like,
and then in parentheses, I couldn't find the real name for this one in the repair manual.
Because any good scientist just names things after themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Gina or Cheetah goes off and says, too bad you couldn't get the radio to work.
Because clearly she would rather listen to music.
Play some tunes while they're down there.
I would like music. But
as they're, talking, going over the finished repairs, the female elf comes walking in, and Cheetah notices that and says, oh yeah, we're about ready here. We're ready to roll on, taking out the dragon. And in the last panel, she says, I'm afraid you would say that.
And she looks very unhappy, the poor little female elf, with her pretty white hair.
Because the first panel on the next page shows Dreadwing walking in, and he has the male elf unconscious in his hand, and he pretty much says he's discovered their plan, which he figured they'd probably try to backstab him.
I love this part, though, because you've got this evil dragon, and he starts out with that flowery words, "Greeting, dear friends, I'm so happy thou hast completed the task." And then it goes into that fiery script. "Because of the collaboration with these two gnats, there shall be no reward." And then in little parentheses, as if there was really a reward to begin with. So clearly he never intended to give them anything.
And he's basically, saying, hey, you can, back away from the time, as all evildoers do, back away from the time raft, or I'll kill my hostage, or you have a choice. You can try to save him, or I'll kill you.
Yeah, and it says, he actually ends up saying, With the fantastic weapons aboard the time raft, I will have no trouble at all. Incidentally, I'm taking your husband with me as a safety measure, which of course upsets the female elf, and she finally grows backbone, calls him a treacherous liar.
And she, attempts to use her magic against the dragon, but, of course, he's a dragon, and being more powerful, he stuns her.
But there's a red glow coming from his eyes, and she gets hit with it and falls unconscious.
And once again, he says to Gina and Cheetah that you pretty much have another option. You can try to save the female elf, or, back away from the time machine, because, you can't do both, or, because I could easily kill her, or give me the time machine. You can't, use it to kill me, or I can kill her. Because on the next page, it starts with Dreadwing on top of the time raft.
So he's crawled onto it in preparation for using it. And he's got the male elf in his claws, and Gina's trying to help the female elf get up.
And of course, Gina's helping her, and Cheetah pretty much says, leave the dragon to me. And of course, he's, kind of laughing at Cheetah, thinking, oh yeah, like, she could do anything. He says,
she calls him Ruggles. Okay, Ruggles. She's so feisty and confident. I do love that about her.
And of course, because like, oh, be a good kitty and don't give me excuse to fry you. And of course, that really, pisses her off because, her hair's kind of gotten...
She goes all rage-fied on him, or she's definitely doing the hissing cat. You got a roaring going on, and she's just like, Cheetah, no! She's like, nobody calls me kitty. Rah! I love that. Wait until I turn you into a pair of shoes with a matching handbag, you overgrown alligator. I'm sure the dragon loves being called an alligator.
Cheetah charges at Dreadwing, who releases a blast of fire out at her, makes it look like he's killed her. She's on fire.
Yep. We see her say whoops, and she gets covered in flames and fully burned, and he's laughing.
But this gives the female elf the opportunity she needs to teleport her mate away, and Gina, with tears in her eyes, uses the remote from the time raft to activate its self-destruct, which basically obliterates Dreadwing, and he's pretty much fried because you see it go up. It's his bones are all that's left being incinerated.
He goes, no, and yep, you got bones.
And on the very last panel, the elves are saying, Dreadwing's been destroyed. We're free, but we're also stuck here in this world. We can't return back to theirs, but at what cost?
Gina's crying about how she's lost her best friend, her sister, and how sorry she is. And then Cheetah's head rises up, and she gives the okay, and she's just black and burned and looking pretty horrible. And she goes, I love it when a plan comes together. And of course, Gina's excited. You're alive! And she goes, I fooled you, didn't you? And you gotta look at her face. She's all burned up, and there's like no hair left on her, really. Just a little bit of tufts here and there, and she's just covered in burns.
Yeah, because I think this is where, like, Fred, like I said, like, for the beginning where Cheetah had all, like, the Band-Aids on her, and said, like, when they were first in the cave against the trolls, and said, Gina, I'm going to remember you for all the new scars I'm going to have. I think he changed his mind towards the end here, because where Gina says, but I thought Lycanthropes could be destroyed by fire. And, Cheetah goes like, nope, silver, and then, cough, cough, silver bullets, magic, and other werewolves can kill me.
Oh, fast healers like me die hard. Which is funny.
So I think he added that to that, because, you could kind of debate whether or not Dragon's Fire is magical or not. That's debatable, but... Again,
I think it depends on what world you're in.
Yeah.
Because I've also read a lot of different ways how you can use the saliva and spark to create flame. I've read a lot of books on different ways dragons, flames, and breath weapons could work physically versus magically. So it's fun to see how he is shifting common myths mythos with, even lycanthropes in this world, to kind of make it his own.
Which I really enjoy too. It's his world. He gets to play with the rules.
Mm-hmm.
And, basically Cheetah is alive and well. She'll heal from this. Of course, you got to think it probably smells real bad in there, all that burnt fur.
Right. There's a lot of burnt fur. So now she's letting the elves know that they're wondering where they go because they can't go home. And Gina's offering up her place, her mansion. It's got a mansion, you guys, the Diggers mansion.
Become part of her science archaeological team.
And then I love this at the end. What are your names anyway? Like as an afterthought, yeah, you guys come move with me. I don't know who you are, but sure, why not?
Yeah, we never did learn their names throughout this whole issue.
Nope.
Of course, and we have to end it with Cheetah asking, "You guys have any extra clothes around here?"
Of course, all her clothes were burned up, so she's covering herself with her arms. She's still all burny. So, and that's the other thing. It's funny because you were mentioning how she just has these band-aids on her versus like actual bandages for all the cuts and scrapes she's gotten, and that could be why. Like, she doesn't need much because she heals, so she only has like a little band-aid to cover up a little bit and call it good.
Yeah,
and then they come off later. And then you got that end. So all in all, it's like it's
and you notice where the arrow was pointing to at the end?
Yeah, at her tail, at her rear.
Yeah, Fred put in a little word bubble, the end, and an arrow pointing at Cheetah's butt.
Which is the end.
The end.
So yeah, this is a fun introduction to the world because you get an idea that there's magic and science fiction and they're blending, and you've got your mythical creatures coming in with your normal stuff. So it's clearly a little bit of urban fantasy in there because it's a modern setting, or as modern as you get with in the 90s. And I love the characters because you've got this highly intelligent, confident woman who's throwing herself into danger for archaeology and for gold and treasure. And it's a fun twist on that. And while I know some people would consider the way she's dressed and the way she's drawn to maybe be, I can't think of the word, misogynistic, maybe, and they might find it offensive. I find it refreshing. It's the concept being the confidence and not caring what others think about what she's wearing and being your true self. I've always found making women feel bad because they are confident enough to wear clothing that might reveal their stomach or show some skin isn't really nice. We should really get away from that sort of mentality, I think, and showing that you can be this confident, intelligent person and still be pretty, still be sexy, and still be interested in boys or romance or what have you is a really fun balance, because so many it's you're either one or the other. You can't be both, and I love seeing both in one set of characters. So I'm excited to see where the rest of this goes.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think for some people you would say, ooh, sexy ladies and sexy clothes might be the first thing they'd see and grab. But I would hope that after you put that aside and actually start reading issues, you'd see that there is more in-depth to the characters, in-depth into the story. Because like you said, I mean, once you started reading it, you actually saw, oh yeah, there's some play between Gina and Cheetah, them being sisters in the little snipes that they do to each other.
And it feels realistic. As someone who has a younger brother and had that sibling rivalry and bickering here and there, it feels very natural. I was very much one of those people. No one's allowed to beat up my brother but me.
Yeah.
So so it feels very natural, and there's some real knowledge here. You can see Fred's using his background and his knowledge of weaponry and that sort of thing to give it some realism in at the same time as bringing in that fantasy and that science fiction and blending them. And I really like that combination.
So Nikki, let me ask you, so after reading this one, would you have picked up like the next issue? Would this intrigue you enough to continue reading?
Yes, for sure. I'm definitely one of those that, being who I am, I would have looked at that first cover and gone, ooh, interesting. She's kind of cute. And I think if I had seen this when I was younger and more into reading comics, I definitely would have probably devoured every issue I could get a hold of. As it is, I want to go move on to the next one. I want to see what comes next. I want to see how the characters develop. Right now, Cheetah is definitely my favorite character of who we've been introduced to so far, aside from the evil dragon. But that's just because dragons are awesome.
Not trying to divulge too much future information. There will be other dragon characters that'll be on the good side that you'll definitely probably enjoy.
Awesome. We do like good dragons as much as I like evil dragons.
And I will have to say, and there are a few other characters that I do like a lot more because of Cheetah. That's one reason why I do have the love of the cheetah animal, and that's one of my top favorite animals is because of the Gold Digger comic.
Yeah, she's a pretty cool little character. I hope we get to see more of her not just her character development, but also her abilities and what she can do being a lycanthrope. Because we've only seen, she can fight and she's clearly strong and she's got claws and the fur and heightened senses. But they hinted at the idea that maybe she can run fast like a real cheetah can. And I hope we get to see her animal form because that'll be cool. I like cats, so I would love to see how he draws that out and how she acts in her full animal form. So I'm excited to see the future of the story and what other misadventures the two of them end up together.
We will definitely have to wait and see what the next issues pan out. And well, I think that'll be it for this issue. And so the next one for our next issue, we'll jump into the first issue of the miniseries that Fred did, the four-part miniseries before he started the main series of the Black and White. And to kind of give a hint of that, it was Fred's Hitchhiker's Guide to the Lost Cities.
Cool.
So our
Which
next
gives us another potential sci-fi delve if he's playing with that whole Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy concept, which I'm sure he is.
Oh yeah, Fred loves to mix. I don't know if you really want to call it pop culture, but I mean he's a big fan of like Transformers, Doctor Who, Star Wars.
And we're gonna get to see some of that, I guess, in his comic. It's the same with most artists, writers who you get to see their influence in their writing. As a writer myself, I have definitely used some of my favorite concepts that I've gotten from artists and authors I adore. So it'll be fun to see how he incorporates some of that inspiration into his work.
Oh yeah, he definitely loves mixing those elements in or making them his.
Well, for those that are listening, thank you so much. I hope we kept you entertained and I hope we didn't get too far off track. And I'll if you decide to start a drinking game with how many times Brian says the word yep, I'm totally for it. We'll work on that. I don't think he noticed it, but I noticed it. I'm sure you noticed it. So if you got to take a shot every time it happens, I get you. I'm there with you.
It's like, no, I did not notice that.
And thank you, Brian, for starting this with me. I think it'll be a lot of fun. Hopefully we can get a better timeline and release on it. So I enjoyed this very much.
Yep. I look forward to the next episode. So this is Brian. I'm signing out.
And Nikki, see you guys later.
Yep. See you next time.